Let's go ahead and get into the news, man. So Jon Favreau apparently did not want the Russo brothers to kill off Tony Stark. He tried to fight to keep Tony Stark alive. Russo brothers like, no, man, it has to happen in Endgame. Uh, do you think Endgame would have been as impactful if Tony didn't die?
No, I don't think so. And I think we start to see that in a lot of the series. I think we're kind of I don't want to say spoiled too, but with Game of Thrones, right? A lot of those losses that we hate to see are more meaningful, and they kind of are talked about for the longest time. If you think about it, it brings impactful moments in like Spider-Man and stuff like that when they're always like mourning for Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Um, if it's like what do you call it with the Stranger Things just recently, and Millie Bobby Brown is kind of calling out the Russo, Duffy brothers.
Mhm.
Like, hey, kill off people that actually matter, because all they do is make a new character, kill it off, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Doesn't really mean as much as if you were to kill off like a Steve or something. So, I think with the Tony Stark death, it's good that it happened. It made this longer lasting effect. Do I think something's going to happen where we just bring him back anyway because it's comic book world? Yeah, and that's kind of a bummer, whatever the case may be, because it just doesn't seem like any loss is really meaningful.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it was the right call. It doesn't, not everything has to be kiddie or too PG. Like, let's have some real loss and some meaningful losses in the series. What about you? Do you think?
Well, if you look at Loki, I think it's a good example of how they can mess this up, because the first Loki death was impactful. Oh, he's redeeming himself and stuff, and then it's just played for laughs immediately when he's like pretending to be Odin, and now at this point, if you guys watch the newest Thor, they do another one of those plays, which was fantastic. Of course, it was. They do another one of those plays, and they're kind of joking around about like the many deaths of Loki, and is he really dead? And so even within the MCU, the death of Loki, one of their best characters, is a joke. And how can you take Marvel seriously? So if we didn't have this Tony Stark death, which was a really good way to cap off 10 years of Marvel because he started Marvel. If you didn't have that, I mean, we'd be going on now thinking like, oh yeah, no superhero is going to die, no Marvel character is going to die. And I think that's something that, Marvel needed to establish, like, hey, there are stakes actually in this, and you can't take anything for granted. Otherwise, again, especially as comic book readers, we know like there's Tony Stark's coming back. I mean, you can't, no matter what you do, there's going to be some sort of reboot or something. He'll be back. Secret Wars definitely can do that, Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. Especially with all this whole like different dimensions and shit like that. It only takes a tiny bit to just open up a portal to a Tony Stark that made a different decision.
Yeah.
Or maybe even a different Doctor Strange that had a different outcome, maybe, possibility.
I think that's something that Marvel's really trying to hide now. After the effects of Endgame and seeing how impactful it was, I think they're trying to really keep quiet, especially to the mainstream folks, the fact that there are billions, endless, a number of Tony Starks out there just waiting to be tapped. And I think for the most part, they're trying to not mention that. It's like, yeah, you guys want a Black Widow. I mean, literally, we could just pluck one away that has almost no variance from our Black Widow. It would take nothing. Yeah. And we're really setting up the situation where we can bring back anybody we want. But I think Marvel's trying to kind of hide that from the mainstream because they want them to still feel like things matter, and in comic books, they kind of don't.
Yeah, it really, I mean, that's a perfect example because I have this amazing story of Captain America, and I brought it to you before. It's one of my favorites, of him being killed and then Bucky takes the mantle. Yeah. Amazing story.
I remember the cover very well. Yeah.
Yeah, I even have this track jacket with the print on the back. But it's like, we'll just anything can happen, and you could kill off anyone, and then you can obviously bring it back, because at the end of the day, I could pick up a different Captain America, a newer one, and Steve Rogers still your Captain America. So whatever. Do you think, okay, so with Loki, you made a good thing because it's always jokes, like even when Thanos killed Loki, it's like, okay, that should be kind of
I didn't
a
feel
big deal,
like
but it's really not. Yeah, exactly, because that's a huge villain killing off a main character. Now, do you think if Tony Stark was here, alive today, whatever the case may be, that he would have this insane impact on like these movies that are coming out recently?
Well, I think he'd be the guiding hand like he was for Spider-Man. We were seeing what a long-term Tony Stark would look like on the MCU, and he was kind of filling in for that, almost what S.H.I.E.L.D. was doing, right? Now that S.H.I.E.L.D.'s gone because of Winter Soldier, to a point, Tony Stark was filling in for that. He was being a mentor to Spider-Man, and I think we would have seen him step up for Kamala Khan, for many others in that same way. He would kind of be the guide, and Doctor Strange is kind of doing that, but one thing that's not you know, foreseen at the time is the fact that Doctor Strange has far bigger problems. I mean, like, he's holding the threads of reality together, let alone the fact trying to mentor the next level of Avengers. So
Yeah.
he can't be pulled into this. Even when we're going to be fan casting our Avengers team, he's not on mine because Doctor Strange
Yeah.
is actually it's kind of like it's like with the Illuminati. Like some people are actually above the Avengers, and
Yeah.
Doctor Strange I think is one of them. He's just too big for it. So what do you do? Who's guiding him? Black
True.
Panther was my next vote. We know what happened there. So it's tough life ahead of them.
Yeah.
And then we have
Okay.
Black Widow died too. And Black Widow I felt like was almost forgotten. I think Black Widow, which is another question of like why did Jon Favreau care about Black Widow dying or not? And apparently there was no kickback for that. So would Black Widow's death meant more because it felt like we kind of forgot her in the wake of Tony Stark dying. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think yeah, you're right though, because obviously they both died in the same movie, so it's kind of given us this experience of like, oh my gosh, there is real loss in this movie. But yeah, I mean, with the biggest scene at the end, the whole snapping of Iron Man's hand and wherever his gauntlet, it
Yeah,
kind of did overshadow that. But you're right though, we can't forget that there was multiple losses in this one. But I can see the overshadowing. I think it's just because overall it's a big moment at the end. Also,
sure, sure.
I think that played a huge part of it. So
It just feels like in a way Black Widow was left in the shade when like even that final Avengers Assemble. I actually just it's funny because like last week I watched it like 3 times, 4 times because I was making clips and stuff throughout the week. And it was like, man, this is such a good scene. And you forget that, like, oh yeah, Black Widow, one of the founding members, isn't in the scene. And I just totally forgot about it. And it's not an hour before that in the movie that she dies. And we're supposed to be like really feeling it. And then if you look at like the post series, the only person who's really hurt by this, or the person who brings it up the most, is Hawkeye. I mean, of course, Scarlet Witch is worried about Vision, who also died in this saga, anyways. And then we have
mhm,
Loki that died. There's so many people who died, and it's all Tony Stark. Is the only person everybody seems
yeah,
to really feel, and it's just interesting that Marvel understands that and leans into it. You know.
yeah, yeah.